How's it going, guys? Honest Sarcastic with the Hyperloops here. And I guess we're going to wrap up kind of the whole regional season. This past weekend was the end of it, so we will not have any more. We're currently going to look at, about a month and a week, a month and 2 weeks for the end of Worlds. So, a couple things to talk about. I think Boba 7th won an event in Georgia by Dominic Patton, a good buddy of ours, Team Patton. Talked with those guys quite a bit in general. Demetrius is Team Bass on Discord. They've been part of the Looper community for a really long time. So congratulations go out to those guys. This is, I think, this is the first one you got, Dominic. Kudos, my friend. I know Demetrius does very well event to event. Sometimes he'll take a crazy pile, though. But it's always nice to see people you know and people you like doing well. So in Cleveland, I want to believe it was BroTK beating Yoda, Ezra, Rookie Pilot. There was a snafu there, from what I've heard, involving an upgrade getting overloaded into Maul Saber, and then the Maul Saber power action, and getting the die, but there was a shield on the opponent's characters. So, like, I really didn't watch it, so I can't really talk much about it. But that's kind of unfortunate that happened. And I guess I'm told that that won the game, or came back and won the game, and then game 3 he smashed the opponent. Realistically, it's kind of one of those things where stupid shit like that happens often. There's a lot of people who will do stuff without realizing it. There's people who do stuff on purpose. It's not my part to say the guy cheated or, won something undeservedly. He messed up. It happens. They've already awarded him the win, and this is really no different from someone casting a lightsaber pull without a spot blue or tactical mastery without a spot red and then winning off of it. It happens at times, friends in low places. We've all lost or won games off of doing something incorrectly, and if it was something like, let's say the judge was watching, then it's like, oh, okay, we throw some shade at the judge, or yeah, so it's really tough. And realistically, if it wasn't streamed, it would have never got caught. So that's another thing that's kind of hard to cope with, and that's when it's, 2 people's eyes on a set of table. Even if a judge is there 3 sets, it's hard to catch everything. But when you've got 30 or 40 people sitting at home watching and catching it, it's much easier to notice things like that. So, like, there's not much to really say there. It sucks. It happens. And there's really just no one to blame. Like, we could blame the entire player base, or both players. One, for not either noticing the shield, or 2, not knowing, Maul's effect. But like I said, the same applies to spots, and that happens relatively frequently. So, not much you can really do there. At one event, I think it was Georgia, the guy had 8th place. There was a misrepresentation of standings. Someone adjusted it to let the TO know what happened, and after the adjustment, the strength of schedule for 9th place put them in over 8th. From the little bit I've read, the match that was changed really had nothing to do with that 9th place player. It wasn't like the 9th place player or a 30th place player came in and was like, oh, I won this match, and then they got their buddy to say yeah and like collude the event. It goes back again to something we don't know. But from what I heard, it was just, you know, some player had came up and let them know that wasn't, you know, that their record wasn't correct. And I think I guess they grabbed the opponent. Opponent confirmed, and then voila, stuff got changed. So that guy kind of got shitted out there, and that's real unfortunate. There's a couple different ways this could have been quote-unquote handled, and I'm not here to call something mishandled, because it's too late. It just doesn't matter. Crying about spilt milk doesn't do well, but we can learn from it and try to, you know, proactively prevent stuff like this from happening again. So one of the things is, I guess they didn't have match slips, and I'm really not quite sure how you have a big event like this without match slips. And I don't mean like efficiency is one thing, but the problem is what if the friggin', like, how often does this tournament software crash? Like, I've been to plenty of events, and I'd probably say like 1 out of every 2 big events the software crashes. 1 out of 2. So these people had probably a 50% chance of this shit just going to shit, and with no potential backups and those things to go back and look if they need to. Like, yeah, I don't want any part of that. But one of the things they could do is, if they printed standings at the end of each round, you go check your standings, you go report it. And if you don't check your standings and fix it, it's going to be tough shit. You're out of luck. I'm a big proponent of making sure what's right is right. When I sit down with my opponent, say it's round 3, I'm 2-0, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, you know, 2-0, blah, blah. And when I don't hear 2-0 from them, it's like, let me go double check. So opponent's 1-1, let me go double check, make sure that, you know, I got a pair down. Okay, got the pair down. Or when I look at my seat table, I also look at the points I have. So it's pretty important to make sure that as tournament organizers, we are putting the point spread up so players would know how many wins they have. It's important for players to realize what those numbers mean on the sheet of paper, because this is how we can make things smoother, prevent random stuff. But like, I'd probably say at least once in every event there's been a record put in incorrectly. The question is, when does it get caught? Actually, oddly enough, Demetrius himself had been in the Patton, the father of the Dominic who won, at Nova. They had put whatever win-loss incorrect for him, so like it got caught like a round or 2 later. But the thing that this does is it screws with tiebreakers for several people. So that's why it's really important to make sure you catch this stuff, because if you get put in, if you had a win, you get put in as a loss. You're now playing weaker people. So yes, things might be easier on you. You get some wins, and then when it gets adjusted, you've got those wins. But now, if let's say you end up losing and you're X2, you're on the bubble, because you played those weaker players who have worse records, your strength of schedule is much worse. So you're really just, you know, boning yourself in the process. And then the other thing you're doing is the player that played that person, who had the win instead of the loss, if that person ends up losing, now once they correct it, their points change. So you're inherently screwing somebody else in the process. Whether it be like that person winning or losing because they shouldn't have played that person. So there's a ripple effect of damage being caused by everyone not actually looking at their points and knowing what's going on. So like, it's hard to really blame that as well, just because there's a lot of people who are just going casual. You know, they're going in, they just, you know, they're hoping out of this 7-round event to win like 3 rounds, and you know, they're just like, oh, I want a top 64 and get this, you know, patience card, and this is like a 90-person event, and like, for me that's kind of unheard of, but I understand the concept. We're not all looking at the top trying to win. Some of us are just trying to, you know, progressively get better and see improvement. So definitely keep that in mind. But I'm going to be coming out with an article probably on things you should do at big events, and I'll reemphasize like making sure that you're looking at what's going on with your seating, standings, everything. So like when you look at it, you should be looking at your name, your table, your points. You should then be looking at your opponent's name, table, and points to confirm stuff, so that when you go sit down, like you have peace of mind that you've done your part correctly. But anyways, so back to the meta. So yeah, we've got a Boba 7th, the Bro TK. I think someone said someone went with Mill in one of the metas. Like realistically, at this point, it kind of just doesn't matter what decks are winning, because assuming it's not one deck over and over. So like we're getting like one Boba 7th, or maybe 2 out of like 4 to like 7 or 8 regionals per week, which is very solid numbers. That means we're looking at a bunch of different decks that are capable of winning. We're looking at top cuts, and it's not 5 Boba 7ths and 3 other decks. Like, that's a win. Every other format and meta we've had has always been like pretty crushing with whatever the quote-unquote best deck is in the format. So like we'll ignore Awakenings just because it had been so long ago. But SOR, you had the Polmazes, and then later on you have the Rainbow FNs. EAW, you started out with Rainbow 5s, and then it like branched into some other decks. We had like the Kylo Anigans, but then it ended up just being completely taken over by like R2-P2. And then near the end we had the vehicle deck trying to make a comeback to crush R2-P2, and then we had the pretty much the coming of OTK back then. We get into Legacy's format. We have I think one of the first big ones was like the Hondo deck. We had like the Mill decks, and then we switched to vehicles, then to Sabine Ezra's and Bro TK, and then switch again, and like we got Rey Ayla now and Boba 7th, and like this is great. Obi Maz, tons of different decks that are capable of being played. The power levels of everything is not the exact same, but it's fine. We deal with it, because if you change like 1 or 2 cards, it could cause another huge ripple effect that would be relatively bad. So like Sabine Ezra isn't seeing tons of play now, but it did for a time, and it can rotate in and out of being great or terrible at the drop of a hat. If the format goes back to like the slower decks that don't output tons of damage, Sabine Ezra could make a comeback at that point, because it is given enough time. The 11th health plus a shield or 2 should get you to the 3rd round, and getting to the 3rd round gives you time to find like your second chances or impersonates, hyperspace jumps, etc., etc., or just kill the opponent with Never Tell Them the Odds. So it's kind of refreshing to play in this format with a bunch of different options. So like I would say there's probably like 20 tier 1.5 type decks. And the only difference between like 1 and 1.5 is like the efficiency on a round per round basis. Like they're all explosive. So like, yeah, sure, Boba 7 could hit you for 20 with some godly stuff, but they could also just run into issues with some well-timed removal, or them trying to do some cute stuff, or like some of the shield decks do very well at screwing them up, killing their guy round 2, and then the other guy just can't make it through. So tons of different stuff's going on there, but it's really nice to see the wide variety of stuff. We're currently waiting on world stuff, so I think I think it's either today or within the next 3 days is the last day for people to turn in their world reserves slots. So for like the GQ wins or 6-0s and regional wins, etc., etc. So I guess I should probably put this out today then. I wanted to put this out tomorrow. I'll check the dates. So hopefully this is out in time to warn any of you people that just weren't paying attention or listening, that didn't have their world slot or world seat in for 2018 and didn't you know, put the request through. But yeah, so like what we're currently worrying about, well, a lot of people are worrying about whether they're going to get into that second chance world seating. I think it's around the 29th, 30, 31st, somewhere. Yeah, 31st. 31 days in this month. So somewhere in those like 3 days, people who attempted to get world seats and didn't get them are going to be hit up with kind of like a first come first serve. So we'll pay attention to that, see what's going on, and go from there. But what we're kind of worried about is, or some of the higher places, if there's going to be a rules reference guide change, and whether there'll be like nerfs, buffs, changes in general to anything that goes and flips our entire meta upside down. Like I said, I think we're in a very good place, and like I think come Worlds we're gonna see a ton of different decks and ton of different strategies, and it's gonna be amazing. Gonna really show who's prepared for the matches, who put a lot of work into like their tech, who's you know, the greatest of the great. And if they give us something and flip the game upside down, it could end up being a complete mess. Like, the expectations for a bit were something like Maul Saber would probably get hit, and then, you know, potentially running interference. But we've seen the running interference decks die down quite a bit, and the Maul Saber's decks are currently being pseudo-countered by the Shield Hero decks. You know, Rey Ayla, Qui-Gon Yoda's making an uptick right now, and pretty much Blue has the best set of weapons, with access to Ancient Shoto Heirloom, and then like they have, you know, Vibro. If they go into yellow, they have Cutlass if they need the additional redeploy, and like the removal suite there is relatively solid from the hero side with force misdirections in a melee meta. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with what's going on, and whether it ends up being like a Maul Saber deck that wins, or I guess a light bow deck. But like light bow decks don't even really necessarily exist right now or are needed, but they do counter each other very well for like the blue hero setups. But yeah, I think I'm real happy about everything going right now. There's not just one deck that's busting shit up. We're not really looking at a complete luck meta where it's like, oh, did I get my opening draw, or did you get yours? Awesome. This sucks. I just lose, or you know, you rolled nutty and I have no answer and you blew me out. So the hope here for me, or at least for me, because I don't know exactly what the other Hyperloops are thinking, but no changes to the RRG sounds great. Hearing kind of less complaints on Facebook, but I don't really pay attention to that too much. I just listen to, you know, how many comments ended up getting silly shit on it, like crazy rulings. I expect some more articles on how stuff works, and we're gonna break into like damage, indirect damage, force illusion, second chance. Apparently there's a lot of misgivings with those type things and understanding exactly how they work. So I'm going to try to get that going for newer players and for older players alike, to get people on the same page, as well as prevent the 8 million questions that get asked that are the same every time on Facebook. So there, what are we at, 20 minutes? Let me think, what else we got? So like decks we're looking at as a whole, we'll start, I guess, with Mill. So the Mill factions, we end up having like Yoda Double Partisan. I'm not sure how strong it is, but it seems relatively good. It's usable in trilogies, obviously. They also have like the Jar Jar version. I think the Jar Jar version might be worse than standard. You've got Yoda Rican, today or Monday, Yoda Rican tournament report should went out if you didn't hear about it. It was top 2 Maryland, but then there was a scoop to get Isaac the world seed, as far as I understand. Played a best of 1 just to play one anyways post scoop, and the Rican Yoda ended up taking that one down. So that's cool. And then you've got the normal version in Rican Yoda Jetta Partisan, all 1 die, 3 die start. And so like those are the normal mill decks, and for the most part they have some issues with the stronger damage decks that don't need to reroll nearly as much, because without needing to reroll, it makes it much harder to pretty much burn through, because most people burn their hand. They're used to, you know, play my upgrade, roll stuff out, use like 2 more cards for rerolls and maybe 1 for a piece of removal. So that deck's very good at milling from the top of the deck, but not as much from the hand, outside of EOC 3PO. So that's super solid, and they don't want to see pretty much Sabine Ezra, and they don't want to see real good aggro decks that can just output tons of damage with kind of like pay sides or like sides, because then it makes it harder. Like you'll be able to natural roll and like start smushing, you know, Yoda or Jetta Partisan, and cause some issues for them. Then you've got the more aggressive decks. So like Boba Phasma's fine, Boba 7th. Let me think. What else? I guess you can count like Ayla Padawan, because it's balls to the wall, trying to just jam down upgrades and smush damage in. And that's pretty much an Eric Wainwright special. Most other people can't play that list if they're like dependent on it. I've seen it at times, but it's just like people. It's very specific how you kind of need to do stuff at times, and if you don't understand that, then like you're just doing a couple things out of order, and now your efficiency metric like drops exponentially, because you really are trying to get 2 upgrades down round 1, whether it be like Ancient and Heirloom or whatever's going on. So and then you're trying to like smash damage through, like big damage, which requires knowing when to reroll, when not to reroll, what removal you're trying to avoid, when to cast like a guard, when not to cast a guard, when to caution, not caution, etc., etc. I'm trying to think what else is relatively aggressive. Kylo Anakin could be considered aggressive. Very, very good versus all the monocolor decks that would be currently used, or the decks that are just heavily based on 1 color. So like you'll have, you know, blue-red decks that'll be like 20 blue cards, kind of like Bro TK. But like when you get in closer to any of those splits where it's like 15-15 or like, you know, 16-12 for the 2, whatever. I'm just throwing out random ass numbers. And then you've kind of got like more of like those mid-range decks that are like, so like Bro TK is really like a combo deck, but it's technically more mid-range, because you want to go. So like if you're playing against a really slow deck, you take your time, build up, and then kill them. If you're playing against a fast deck, then you can just go try to nut damage out, kill like Sabine, or, you know, like Vader's or whatever main character is there, Kylo. I'd probably call Kylo Towson a mid-range deck also, because like their damage output can just spike through the roof, but the way they play their game is they have the option of going slow or fast, depending on what's going on. Thrawn Towson's probably similar to that as well, as odd as that sounds, because they're really only looking, on average, like, what, 4 to 6 damage round 1, and then probably like 6 to 8 round 2, depending on like how fast they're going, or like chance cube status. And then, so like they're one of those like 4 round decks, but once they kill like that first guy, if you can't take one of their guys off the table, the game almost ends right there, because you've lost dice and they haven't, and they've been peeking at your hand and pretty much know what's going on and can prevent removal or like whatever sneak plays you're trying to do to make a comeback. So yeah, Thrawn 1000, I said. You've got like a Yoda Hondo. Yoda Hondo's like this weird deck that can be like super aggressive when their opponent spends all their money, or they can sit there and be like super controlly, and that's why like I tend to lump a lot of things into mid-range, even if they may not be, just because they have the option. And like for me, mid-range decks are decks that can decide to either play the aggressive or the control portion of the match and do either side very adequately. But like aggro decks tend to not have removal or enough removal. Like they'll have a bunch of 0-drop removal and then maybe like a couple pieces of 1. And like that's usually how you can differentiate like an aggro deck from a mid-range. You got Mother 5s, which is an aggressive deck. Trying to think what else is there. Man, there's just so many decks. Like Obi Maz, probably more mid-range. They've shifted more to combo base, with like, you know, RI for concentrate or like Vibro Knife. They have some nice stuff going with like being able to like Maz into a 4-speed, then crack, you know, focus to flip a bunch of dice over, and it's like, all right, you know, I'll do my Ancient 3 plus my Vibro 2 and my Obi 3 to kill a guy through his shields and Force Illusion, which is real strong there. And like you can't touch it because 4-speed either sped up or they RI into like a concentrate to do it, and they have hyperspace jumps. So like that seems to be the current like Sabine Ezra style of deck as well. Except Ezra kit has a better chance of removing like the resources for disruption, and then has like second chance to survive. What else we got? Checking time. Already talked about Bro TK. Oh, vehicles. There's 2 vehicle decks. You're pretty much looking at Ayla, Rose, either Jar Jar or Ezra. It's normally Ezra, but some people could go with Jar Jar because like trilogies, and then they might like it enough where they run it main deck. Then you've got the Yoda Ezra Rookie Pilot, and that deck really tries to ramp real hard and can use Yoda specials into Ezra specials to mess with opponents' resources, while netting themselves big benefits there to cast down big vehicles. And like both of those decks have real low damage outputs to start, but when you start taking like Y-wing hits to the face, the damage adds up immensely, and because they tend to have a pretty decent chunk of life, so like Yoda Ezra Rookie Pilot only has 24, but Ayla Rose Ezra has 26, and they have enough removal, and realistically when you kill their guys, the dice they're losing are not huge, and they have access to like Vandalize to mess with your upgrades. So, you know, those Maul Sabers look real cool until they get blown up and it costs them like an Ayla, a Rose, and an Ezra die. And they sat there still using all their vehicles to punish you and beat you up with. Those ones are probably closer to me to control decks. They can't really decide to go aggressive. When they try, they have to do a lot to try to like start taking a guy down. So to me, they're more along the control method, where they're kind of grinding you down over time, and like just the longer the game goes, the better it is for them. I guess mill decks are also technically control decks, normally speaking, at least, because the amount of removal that they carry. So yeah, like the vehicle decks are real strong. There's some decks that just they can't cope with. never talked about Sabine Ezra, I guess. That one's like a mid-range combo deck again. People often think of it as it's supposed to be aggressive, but I guess Sabine Yoda is not really super capable of being that aggressive, because like between dice rolls and then just trying to fix with the one die, you're more dedicated to combo and try to stay alive. So they do like 4-speed tricks and Mazgagos tricks, and then the Ezra version, if you're hitting 1s and 2s on Ezra's, you can get the damage in. But if not, they're kind of just looking to disrupt the opponent a bit and get whatever damage they can get in, and then get out without taking too much, so that they can keep her alive, because it's the big little syndrome. You can't really carry too well with Ezra or Yoda post Sabine death. But yeah, man, like I've already named a bunch of decks, and like there's still tons to name out. Did I list Rey Ayla or Qui-Gon Yoda yet? Both of those decks are yeah, back to mid-range again. They're mid-range. They try to build up like the Shoto set, make it hard for you to kill their guy, whilst their upgrades and their build-up are hitting you over time. A lot of like 1,000 cuts coming from them, but they do have relatively big damage sides there, because they can hit the 2s for the melees, and then the upgrades you're going to have like Ancient for the 3, and Rays and Heirlooms who have big sides. And then they are running close quarter assaults, which can pretty much, you know, screw up your entire round. Because if you play an upgrade and play a piece of removal, and then they CQA for 3, that's it. There's no rerolls for you, and most decks require you know, 1 or 2 rerolls to get maximum efficiency, or just to get efficiency in general. It's like, how often are we just seeing shitty sides we don't want to see? A lot of decks right now have gone away from pay sides, because pay sides really just ruin you. When you don't have the money to pay, it's pretty much a blank, and having blanks are really just not good. Let's see what else is there. You got Kylo Talzin. That deck's a little weird, because like it's like it's aggressive, but because of like Rise Agains and like if they have the Chance Cube setups, they can be more mid range, because they're just trying to get damage in and stay alive, and then they can you know, rise and just ruin you. You really kind of have to race Kylo a lot of the time, as a lot of the decks in the format right now, outside of like vehicles and whatnot. What else we got? Yep, I already said Yoda Hondo. I don't know, man. There's just so many different decks that can be played. It's ridiculous. I probably missed several of them. Feel free to yell at me in the comments. But yeah, format's great. And like I said, look forward to some of the articles we have coming out, especially on like what to do at like big events. There's like small little things, like time issues. You get deck checked, and then you know the round started or whatever. Like some tournament organizers are very amazing about deck checks, because if they deck check you and they already started the round, then they've kept track of the time, normally speaking, and gave you like a couple minutes to sit down, prepare to play with your opponent. If you got deck checked in between rounds and the round just started like right after, like you can request to have, you know, like 3 or 4 minute time extension for your specific match, in the case that it goes to time, because they just pretty much manhandled your deck, and you have to, you know, get adequate amount of shuffling in, get to your seat, sit down, set up. Whereas other people have been able to do that in general. But lots of small things to take into consideration. You also kind of want to find out how judges are ruling in general. I guess I could save a lot of this for just the article setup. But if you really question a judge ruling that you know that you feel is 100% wrong, because you know it, like, you know the stuff. Like, let's say a judge says something, like he messes up the running interference rule in my match. I'll just be like, hey, like, I believe you to be like 100% incorrect here. Can I pull up the rules to explain why I believe that's so? And just show him, like, this is what it says. RI does not float into subsequent turns if I pass. Yada yada. So, or like, I can discard to reroll 0 dice, or claiming on an Emperor's Throne Room. If my handcrafted lipo is already on a special, then I cannot resolve that die. Small stuff like that adds up. And if you're wondering why can't you resolve, handcrafted lipo showing a special when you claim Emperor's Throne Room, it's because the first part of the effect text is that you have to turn a die. So to turn a die, you have to switch it to another side. And if you switch it to any other side that's not the special, you couldn't have resolved it because you didn't switch it to a special. Like, you couldn't turn it to a special because it didn't have another special side. So you don't meet the then requirement to then resolve it. And you would just whiff. And it's something that, like, if I was in a big event, I'm at Nationals or whatever, and I was playing against Pomaz, someone had a special on go already and then claimed to try to resolve it. Yeah, no, man. Like, you claimed and that's it. Your die sits in the pool, you didn't get the effect. These small things seem really harsh, but it matters quite a bit. And you can pretty much win games by your opponent screwing shit up, or you can lose games by yourself screwing shit up. So I'm going to have some stuff like how stuff works going on, and stay tuned for that. And I don't know, I'm going to try to get some of my old articles that I had ideas for written up while I focus and focus on Worlds and preparation, and wait into that first week of April and pray that there's no RRG change. But we'll see how it goes, and thanks for watching. Hyperloops out, baby. Hyperloops out.